Everything begins in the mind. There is no outer world independent of what you accept as true within yourself. All that you see, all that you experience is simply the reflection of your inner state. If you can hold a thought, not idly, not in passing, but with feeling, for 17 seconds, you have begun the process of manifestation. Not by effort, not by struggle, but by assumption. For what you assume to be true, though unseen, will crystallize into form. The moment you feel it real, it is done. Creation is finished. You are not creating anything new, you are selecting. The infinite states already exist, and your imagination is the key that opens the door. Hold the scene, the image, the tone of reality in your mind for just 17 seconds, and you begin to fuse with it. But the longer you hold it with conviction, the more powerful its pull becomes. At 17 seconds, the idea ignites. At 34 seconds, momentum builds. At 51 seconds, it strengthens. And at 68 seconds, it becomes a vibrational match to what must unfold. Do not concern yourself with how it will happen. The how is not your work. Your work is to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and rest in that knowing. If you want love, dwell in the state of being loved. If you want wealth, see yourself as already abundant. If you want healing, imagine your body as whole. The outer must obey the inner. What you accept as true, even for a short moment, begins the shift in your reality. It is not about repetition, but conviction. One moment of pure, undistracted belief carries more power than hours of worry or doubt. In 17 seconds of undivided attention, you declare, "This is who I am now." And the world echoes that declaration back to you. What you are conscious of being is all that matters. Change your concept of yourself, and the world rearranges itself to match it. Use your imagination wisely. Withdraw attention from what you do not desire and place it upon what you do. Your imagination is not a toy. It is divine. Treat it as sacred. When you feel something deeply and persistently, even for a few focused seconds, you invite it into your world. That is the law. Everything you see, touch, taste, and experience is the outpicturing of what you hold within yourself. There is no reality apart from consciousness, and the world you call real is simply the mirror reflecting the assumptions you persist in. The origin of all manifestation is the mind, not the scattered thoughts that flutter in and out, but the dominant, sustained beliefs and inner conversations you hold about yourself, about life, about what is possible. Everything begins in the imagination, not as a fanciful daydream, but as the very act of creation. Your imagination is not separate from the source of life. It is the life. When you imagine something vividly, when you feel it as true within you, you are engaging the creative power that brings all things into being. This is not metaphor, it is not theory, it is law. The world you observe is consciousness objectified. Whatever you are conscious of being or having, whether you accept it with joy or silently suffer under it, will continue to express itself as your external reality. You may believe you are merely reacting to the conditions of life, but you are always setting them into motion by your inner states. What you believe about yourself will persist, not because the world has power over you, but because you unconsciously give it permission to do so. Everything begins with you, not the physical you, but the invisible, internal you that imagines, assumes, and accepts. The creative act is not an outer struggle, it is an inward movement, a shift in consciousness. When you imagine a scene, when you bring a desire into your awareness and feel its reality, you are performing a sacred act. You are impressing upon the infinite substance of being a new pattern, and that pattern must take form. That is why nothing can appear in your life unless it first exists in your consciousness. The unseen is the cause. The seen is the result. Most people live in reverse, reacting to the physical world, believing it to be primary. But those who understand the truth of being know that imagination is the only reality. The outer world is the delayed reflection, the shadow, the echo of what you have imagined and accepted as true. To imagine is to participate in creation. This is not mere visualization. Visualization without feeling is like planting seeds in dry soil. It may look right, but nothing grows. What matters is what you feel as real. Imagination fused with belief, with conviction, with inner knowing, that is the creative power. When you imagine something and believe in its reality, even before it appears, you have set the law in motion. The world must conform. It has no choice. It is powerless to resist the command of your inner state. Consider this. Every invention, every piece of art, every transformation in your life or in the life of anyone who has ever dared to believe in more, it all began as a thought so real in the mind of its beholder that it could not help but become real in the world. The aeroplane, the telephone, the idea of freedom, these were all imagined first. The person who imagined them did not say, "I will wait until I see it to believe it." They believed it and then they saw it. That is the law. You are always imagining. Whether you are aware of it or not, you are constantly creating your reality through the images, feelings, and assumptions you hold. You imagine lack and you live in lack. You imagine rejection and experience it. But change your imagination and you change your world. When you begin to consciously direct your imagination, to dwell in the feeling of your wish fulfilled, to assume the best rather than fear the worst, everything shifts. The power that creates galaxies is not separate from you. It operates through you, in the stillness of your mind and in the aliveness of your heart. And when you use this power deliberately, you step into your role as the creator of your world. To accept this is to take full responsibility for your life. Not blame, but responsibility. The understanding that nothing is happening to you, but everything is happening through you. This responsibility is not a burden, it is your freedom. You are free to imagine anything. You are free to believe in a version of yourself that is prosperous, loved, healthy, fulfilled. And when you do, when you inhabit that version with faith, the outer world must reflect it. The reason this truth seems hidden to most is not because it is secret, but because it is simple. People are taught to trust in facts, in logic, in what they can see, but reality bends not to logic, but to belief. The universe responds not to what you wish for, but to what you believe is already yours. And belief is nothing more than sustained imagination. The moment you imagine something with clarity and conviction, you give it life. You begin the process of embodiment. And if you remain loyal to that vision within, despite what your senses say, you will see it externalized. Not because you fought for it, but because you became it. You do not need to beg or plead. The universe is not moved by desperation, it is moved by alignment. And alignment is simply this, the agreement between your inner assumption and your outer reality. When they are in harmony, what you desire flows naturally into your life. When they are out of alignment, you experience delay, resistance, or lack. But the remedy is always within, in what you choose to imagine and believe. The mind that imagined the problem is the same mind that can imagine its solution. The same power that creates difficulty can just as easily create ease. So be deliberate with your inner world. Nourish it, protect it. Speak to yourself not as a victim, but as a creator. Do not look to circumstances for permission to feel good. Feel good and circumstances will follow. The seed of everything you desire is already within you. The question is not whether it exists, but whether you will imagine it long enough to give it form. Just 17 seconds of focused feeling imagination can start the shift, because the moment you dwell in the feeling of already having what you desire, you activate the creative law that brings it into being. Not later, not someday, now. Holding a thought for 17 seconds is not about counting time, but about entering a state of concentrated awareness, where your mind and emotion align with a single idea. Most people let their thoughts drift. They think about what they want, but they also think about what they fear. They wish for something, but they also doubt it. In that divided state, nothing can take form. But when you give a thought your undivided attention, even for a few seconds, it begins to attract energy to itself. It gains momentum, it becomes magnetic. And if the thought is accompanied by emotion, the feeling of its truth, the assumption that it is already done, you have begun the act of creation. This focused state, held for just 17 seconds, is the spark. It is the ignition point. The mind, like a lens, can diffuse light or focus it to the point of fire. When you hold a single thought, not distracted, not interrupted, but fully engaged with the feeling of it being real, You have lit that fire. The longer you hold it, the brighter it burns. And the brighter it burns, the faster it gathers the essence of itself from the unseen and pulls it into the seen. You do not need to force it. You do not need to strain. The creative act is natural and effortless when you surrender to the idea as already true. Holding the thought with conviction is not about intensity but purity. It is about the absence of contradiction. If you say, I am wealthy, but in the next moment think, I can't afford this, your focus is scattered, nothing is being held. But if for 17 seconds you let go of the doubts, ignore the outer world, and rest in the awareness of already having what you desire, you begin to reshape the field of consciousness. You begin to rewrite your inner script, and life responds to that script. This is not about controlling the outside world. It is about aligning with the truth within. When you say, I am, and complete that statement with clarity, belief, and feeling, you have invoked the name of creation itself. You are not asking for something. You are declaring its presence within you. And what you claim as true within must mirror itself without. The world cannot deny the inner state you persist in. If you remain loyal to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, even if only for short, concentrated moments, you will begin to see it reflected in your life. 17 seconds may sound insignificant, but in that short space, if your mind is clear and your heart is open, you can launch a new reality. Energy responds to focus. Focused energy sets the wheels of creation in motion. A thought held with emotion becomes a vibration, and vibration is what the universe responds to. You do not get what you want. You get what you are in harmony with. And you are in harmony with what you consistently feel. So what happens in those 17 seconds? In that time, if you remain undisturbed and devoted to your inner vision, your thought starts to vibrate at a new frequency. That frequency begins to pull similar frequencies toward it. Like attracts like. At the 17-second mark, you've built enough energy for the thought to attract another thought of the same nature. If you can hold the thought for another 17 seconds, 34 in total, the momentum builds further. The longer you stay with it, the more powerful it becomes. At 68 seconds, the thought reaches enough vibrational energy to begin manifesting its form in the physical world. This is not superstition. It is the mechanism of creation. Just as a seed does not sprout the moment you place it in soil, but begins a process unseen, so too does your focused thought begin a vibrational process the moment it is felt as real. The key is not to force its growth, but to trust the process and remain faithful to the inner state. You do not dig up the seed to check its progress. You water it with continued belief. You nourish it with your attention. You bask in the joy of already having it, and in that joy, you speed its appearance. Most people cancel their desires before they ever gain momentum. They focus for a moment, then doubt. They imagine, then criticize. They plant, then uproot. But you can reverse this. You can become deliberate. You can take back your power by giving your attention to only that which you desire to bring into being. That is the power of the 17 seconds. It is the conscious choice to hold only the thoughts that serve your becoming. Thought is not only what you think, but how you feel while thinking it. Thought is the form, but feeling is the fuel. If you imagine a scenario and feel joy, relief, love, gratitude, you are adding vibrational energy to it. You are quickening it. You are shaping the unseen into form, even if your current reality shows no signs of change. Even if the senses contradict the vision, if you persist in the feeling of the fulfilled desire, the outer world will have no choice but to rearrange itself to match. There is no limitation in the mind except the one you place there. The reason people do not manifest quickly is not because they are unworthy, but because they have not learned to sustain the feeling of the desired state. They allow the senses to dominate their attention. But what the senses show you is only the echo of past beliefs. If you want to change the echo, you must sing a new song within. You must dare to think a new thought and hold it uninterrupted with love, with joy, with faith, even if just for 17 seconds. That is all it takes to start the shift. This practice becomes a way of life, not rigid but natural, not desperate but relaxed. You find pleasure in imagining the best. You find satisfaction in claiming what is already yours. You stop waiting for evidence and you become the evidence. You let the inner world become more real to you than the outer, and as you do, the outer bows to the inner. It always has. It always will. That is the law. Imagination is not idle fantasy. It is the creative power of the universe operating through you. Every world that has ever been built, every invention, every relationship, every transformation, all began in the unseen, in that sacred realm within you where thoughts are given form. The outer world is nothing more than the echo of your inner state, and that echo responds faithfully to the tone you strike in imagination. When you enter a scene and live in it, not as a distant observer, but as an active participant, you are impressing the substance of reality with a new instruction. There is a difference between thinking of something and thinking from it. Thinking of it keeps it at a distance. You observe it like a painting on a wall, separate from you, admired perhaps, but untouched. But when you think from it, you enter the scene, you step into it, you become one with it. You are no longer wishing for something to happen. You are now the one for whom it has already happened. This shift from I hope to I am is the foundation of all conscious manifestation. To imagine effectively, you must feel the reality of the desire. You must touch it with your inner senses. See it, hear it, feel it, taste it, smell it, as though you are truly there. The mind does not distinguish between what is real and what is vividly imagined. When you flood your awareness with the sensory details of the fulfilled desire, your body responds as if it has already happened. And once you have aligned your emotional state with the imagined event, you begin to broadcast a new frequency into the field of consciousness. That frequency is what shapes your experience. The world reflects back the state you consistently embody. If you dwell in lack, the world echoes lack. If you dwell in fulfillment, the world reshapes itself to fulfill your inner state. You may not see it immediately, but the process is set in motion the moment you become it in imagination. You do not imagine for results. You imagine because it is your divine right to create, to move from one state to another, to choose the kind of life you wish to live. There is a sacred art in dwelling in the end. You do not concern yourself with how it will come to pass. The means are not your responsibility. That is the domain of the unseen forces that respond to the blueprint you offer them. Your role is to persist in the assumption that it is already so. When you close your eyes and see yourself as the person who has what you desire, who lives in the reality you long for, you begin to rewrite the script of your life. And it is not enough to see it once. Repetition, done with feeling and without strain, is the key. Each time you return to the scene in imagination, you deepen the impression, you strengthen the signal. You move further away from the state of wanting and closer to the state of being. It does not matter what your past has looked like. The moment you revise it in imagination and persist in that revision, you create a new trajectory. The past only has power if you continue to refer to it. When you rewrite it inwardly, the outer begins to obey the new version. You are the operant power. No one and nothing is doing this to you. The life you live is the outpicturing of the ideas you hold within. That is why it is essential to guard your imagination as you would a sacred temple. Do not permit fear to build images in your mind. Do not allow doubt to construct scenes that contradict your deepest desires. Use your imagination deliberately. Enter your chosen scene and remain there. Feel its reality. Touch its texture. Hear the voices, smell the air, and above all, feel the relief and joy of already being the person who possesses the thing you once only longed for. This practice is not about pretending in the way children play make-believe. It is about assuming a higher identity, one that already exists in the eternal now. You are not trying to become this new version. You are revealing it. You are uncovering a version of yourself that has always existed, just outside your former awareness. Imagination lifts you into that version. It is the bridge between the seen and the unseen, between who you were and who you are becoming. Fala kegem. When you imagine, do so in a quiet space. Turn away from the senses. Close the door on the outer world and enter the inner sanctuary. Let your imagination become more vivid than what your eyes see. You may start with small scenes, a conversation, a moment of triumph, the use of a desired object. Keep it simple. Repeat it often. Add emotion to it. Let it become your dwelling place, not just a momentary daydream. The more time you spend there, the faster your external life conforms to it. Many make the mistake of looking to the outer world for signs, but the true sign is within. The sign is your changed reaction. When you no longer feel doubt, when you no longer seek proof, when you feel peace and confidence without evidence, you have succeeded. You are now living from the state, and the world must catch up. You may wonder how long it will take. But that question arises from a place of separation. When you are fully immersed in a state, time becomes irrelevant. You are no longer waiting, you are being. And that is the secret. You are not trying to make something happen. You are allowing what already is to rise into visibility. The outer is a shadow, the inner is the source. Change the inner, and the shadow follows. Imagination is the workshop of reality. It is not a passive tool, it is the very act of creation. Every detail you add, every feeling you summon, every moment you return to that sacred image, it all builds the structure that life will soon inhabit. Treat it with reverence, use it with joy. Let it be your constant companion. And remember, you become what you imagine. Not someday, now. Your feelings are not just responses to your world, they are creators of it. Emotion is the fuel of manifestation. It is not enough to imagine with clarity. You must imagine with feeling, for feeling is the bridge between thought and reality. The energy of your emotion amplifies the power of your inner image, and it is this vibration that molds the unseen substance of life into visible form. To feel the wish fulfilled is to touch the very essence of creation. When you imagine something with emotional conviction, as if it is already true, you align yourself with the state of the desired outcome. This is not about wishing or hoping, which keeps you in a state of absence. It is about being emotionally anchored in the assumption that what you desire is already yours. That emotional conviction makes your inner world magnetic. Every emotion carries a frequency. Gratitude, joy, peace, love. These are high vibrations that lift you into the state of already having. They are the natural emotional tone of someone who is living their desire. When you feel from the end, you are no longer waiting for something to arrive, you are embodying it. This feeling is not dependent on external proof. It arises purely from within, and that is why it is so powerful. The outer must reflect what is established internally. The world outside does not respond to your words or your actions. It responds to your dominant emotional state. You may say you want abundance, but if you feel lack, you perpetuate lack. You may visualize a loving relationship, but if you carry fear and loneliness, those are the seeds you are planting. Emotion is the invisible signature you emit at every moment, and life echoes it with uncanny accuracy. This is why it is essential to cultivate emotional awareness. Do not suppress how you feel, but learn to transmute it. When you feel fear, recognize it, honor it, and then shift your attention to a higher state. You do not resist negative emotion. You transcend it by imagining something better and feeling it as real. Your ability to feel deliberately is your greatest spiritual power. It is through feeling that you claim dominion over your world. To manifest deliberately, begin by constructing an inner scene that implies your wish is already fulfilled. Then, as you close your eyes and dwell in that scene, summon the emotion that corresponds with its reality. If it is a financial breakthrough, feel the relief and security. If it is a healed relationship, feel the love and harmony. If it is health, feel the vitality and freedom. Let the emotion wash over you, not in desperation, but in celebration. And when you sustain that feeling for even a few seconds, 17 seconds of pure undiluted focus, you activate a signal strong enough to shift the trajectory of your life. And when you return to that feeling repeatedly, you begin to build a new emotional home. From that home, you begin to see the world differently. And because your perception changes, your reactions change. Because your reactions change, your future changes. Many people attempt to manifest while still emotionally anchored in their current reality. They visualize wealth while feeling poor. They affirm love while feeling unworthy. They imagine success while fearing failure. But the universe responds not to what you ask for. It responds to who you are being. And who you are being is revealed by what you feel most consistently. That is why it is not enough to say the words. You must feel the reality behind them. You can practice this anywhere, at any time. A moment of emotional alignment is more powerful than hours of forced thought. Sit quietly, close your eyes, and recall what it feels like to be free, to be loved, to be secure. Let that emotion rise until it fills your chest and expands beyond you. Let it become your state, and once you have touched it, carry it into your daily life. Walk, speak, and act from that feeling as often as you can. You are not pretending. You are practicing the reality of your future. Do not be discouraged if your outer world has not yet caught up. The feeling comes first. It is the seed. The manifestation is the fruit. And just as you would not dig up a seed to check its progress, you must trust the feeling to do its work in the unseen. The moment you feel the reality of your desire, you set the law in motion. You have done your part. There is no emotion more transformative than gratitude. To feel grateful before the manifestation arrives is to speak the language of creation. It is a declaration that what you imagined is already yours. Gratitude assumes completion. It assumes possession. When you wake each day in gratitude for what is unfolding, you harmonize with the essence of the fulfilled desire. Gratitude magnetizes. It multiplies. It tells the universe, I already have this and I welcome more. Joy is another powerful frequency. Joy is the emotion of someone who knows they are supported by something greater, someone who trusts the unseen process. Joy does not beg or plead, it radiates. And that radiation attracts all things of like frequency. When you make joy your default emotion, you become a magnet for experiences that sustain and amplify that joy. You do not need to feel ecstatic or overwhelmed with emotion. Even a subtle, steady inner sense of knowing is enough. The emotion must feel real to you. A quiet confidence, a serene satisfaction, a peaceful expectancy, these are signs you are aligned. The key is consistency. Return to the feeling often. Let it become the emotional climate of your inner world. Remember that your feeling is your prayer. Your feeling is your offering to the creative force that shapes reality. You are always praying, always declaring something by how you feel. The question is not whether your prayer will be answered. It always is. The question is, what are you praying with your dominant emotions? You are not here to beg the world for scraps of happiness. You are here to realize that your emotions are the sacred instruments by which you mold the world around you. Use them wisely. Use them deliberately. Let them serve your vision rather than your history. When the feeling is real, the world will soon make it real, not because you forced it, but because you became it. You are not a victim of fate, you are the author of it. And feeling is the ink with which you write. Your imagination, charged with persistent belief, becomes the channel through which the invisible becomes visible. It is not the fleeting wish or casual daydream that alters the course of your life. It is the steady, unwavering inner conviction that what you have imagined is already true. The world outside does not bend to effort alone. It reshapes itself to match the inner world you consistently return to with feeling, focus, and certainty. Passion. Persistence is not about physical repetition or stubbornness in the outer world. It is about remaining inwardly loyal to the unseen truth you have chosen. Even when the senses argue against you, even when facts seem to mock your desire, persistence is the act of returning again and again to the inner scene, the feeling, the vision, the knowing that your desire is already fulfilled. To persist is to inhabit the state of your wish fulfilled and refuse to leave it. Your present reality is nothing more than the outpicturing of your previous assumptions. You are never at the mercy of what appears before you. What is seen is always the echo of what was once believed. And the moment you change your belief, persist in it, and feel it as true, you start to move the entire universe in alignment with your new self-concept. But the shift is not always immediate. The old assumptions often cry out for attention as they dissolve. This is where most turn back. The testing ground is when nothing seems to change, when the bank account still shows lack, when the diagnosis still reads the same, when the person hasn't returned your call. This is where your persistence becomes your power, not by fighting the appearance, but by ignoring its authority. You are not required to wrestle with the facts. You are only required to be faithful to your inner knowing, to remain in the state of the wish fulfilled, even when the outer world tempts you to doubt. This inner loyalty is not a struggle when you understand that imagination is reality. If what you imagine feels real to you and you persist in it, it must come to pass. The law is impersonal. It does not reward the most deserving, it reflects the most consistent. You may not control the moment of manifestation, but you absolutely control the moment of assumption. And every moment you persist in the assumption, you are building the bridge of incidents that will deliver your desire. It is not your job to figure out how. The how belongs to a higher intelligence that responds to your inner state. Your job is to dwell in the feeling, to return to the inner scene as often as you can until it feels like home. You cannot hold two conflicting beliefs at the same time. If you persist in imagining lack, no amount of hoping will bring abundance. If you continue to identify as unlovable, no amount of seeking will produce love. But if you persist in imagining yourself wealthy, loved, healthy, successful, those ideas take root in the subconscious, and from that fertile ground, life begins to grow in alignment with your belief. Persistence is not a chore. It is the practice of alignment. You align with the vibration of your desire, not just once, but continuously. It may be subtle, like a quiet return to your inner world as you walk or sit or rest. It may be dramatic, like an emotional declaration to yourself in private, but it must be consistent. The subconscious mind responds to repetition and feeling. When you persist, you convince it that your imagined world is real, and it then takes that belief and makes it flesh. This does not mean denying reality. It means refusing to be limited by it. You are not asked to pretend the world is different. You are asked to feel and know that the truth you hold within is more real than what you currently see. The world rearranges itself for the persistent one. The universe does not argue, it mirrors. If you persist in fear, it reflects fear. If you persist in faith, it reflects miracles. There is a quiet strength in one who has chosen to persist. Such a person is not easily shaken by appearances. They may walk through chaos, but they carry peace. They may be doubted by others, but they no longer doubt themselves. This kind of inner fortitude is built not through effort, but through repeated visits to the scene of the ideal, through feeling its reality so often that it becomes more familiar than the current world. Persistence begins with a decision, a choice to believe the inner world more than the outer, a choice to feel the joy of fulfillment before the evidence arrives, a choice to return to that inner feeling every time doubt tries to pull you away. Each time you imagine and feel, you are adding to the blueprint of your reality. Each time you refuse to entertain the opposite, you are solidifying your claim. And this is not a mechanical repetition. It is a living, breathing state. You are not repeating words without emotion. You are returning to the feeling of already being, already having, already living. The imagination becomes your dwelling place, and persistence is what keeps you there, even when the outer world tries to call you back. Do not measure your progress by what you see. Measure it by how often you dwell in the feeling of your fulfilled desire. That is your only true work. If you persist in that state, everything else will be added. The world cannot help but respond to someone who knows who they are and refuses to accept anything less. You may stumble, you may forget, you may fall into doubt, but your persistence is proven not by perfection, but by your return. The moment you remember, return to your vision. Let it wash over you again. Feel it, know it, live it inwardly. That is persistence. That is faith. That is the creative act. When you persist in imagining yourself already successful, already healed, already blessed, you become a living magnet for the reality that matches that state. And once that assumption becomes natural, the world has no choice but to yield. Not by force, but by law. You do not need time, you need only inner certainty. But the world will appear to move in time, so let it. Your persistence will collapse time as you embody more and more of your vision. What once seemed distant becomes immediate. What once felt impossible becomes obvious. Not because the world changed on its own, but because you persisted long enough for the world to catch up. The truth is simple. That which you are conscious of being, you become. The only question is, can you persist in that consciousness long enough for it to harden into fact? If you can, there is nothing you cannot bring into your experience, not through force, not through striving, but through the quiet, persistent knowing that what you are within is what you shall see without.